Julie, what time is it?
Adventure time.
All right.
Yeah.
Hey neighbors, welcome to Wild Homestead Living. I'm Kevin.
And I'm Julie, and today you might notice that we are in a different place than you usually see us. We are in one of our favorite secret spots in the Cascade Mountains of Washington State, near our homestead. You know, with Wild Homestead Living, that word wild is really important to us because not only do we love the wildness on our own property, but we love being near other wild places. Today we came out because it has been really hot on our homestead, and it's a way to beat the heat, and it's also a chance for us to test out our bodies. We are midway through a hike today, first time since I've had my last surgery for cancer, and since Kevin went on the insulin pump, and so this was an opportunity for us to give it a try.
Yeah, and it's gone pretty well.
We've had our exciting ups and downs on this trip that we're excited to tell you about.
It's had some challenges. The trip started with a long drive on some pretty sketchy roads that were a lot more sketchy than last time we were out here. But the car seems to have made it intact. We're hoping to go back and find all 4 tires intact when we get back to it.
And to take us out.
And to take us out, yeah. At the end of the drive, though, we parked, and we were basically on an old logging road that's really overgrown. It's an area that very few people come to anymore. There's a couple bridges, one of which we're sitting on, that are still intact. But for the most part, it's just a footpath now with a lot of fresh growth growing over it. We traveled on that into the woods for a mile or so, and then cut off into the trees and headed for a stream channel. And from there, we just rock hopped up the stream channel.
Yeah, and this is an area we found years ago when we were hunting for a lost mine, and found on the way there a beautiful waterfall. So along the way we rock hopped, we went through the woods on some old trails that we had flagged, and then we hit the waterfall. And it's a beautiful spot to stop and have lunch, and that's what we did. And then we needed to assess how we were doing and whether we could make that next half of the journey up a pretty steep draw.
Yeah, we in earlier years, we would pause at the waterfall and then climb up a really long stretch of canyon that basically, it was kind of segmented. There's waterfalls like all the way up. So it's like there's a climb, a waterfall that you have to circumvent, or if it's dry enough, climb up, another climb, another waterfall, eventually ending at a mine. We weren't certain how we would do today. It's also about 90 degrees or more out here today, but we just decided to give it a try, and we got up to the first waterfall, and I started to feel a little bit low blood sugar, a little bit weak, and noticed that my numbers were dropping. So we stopped there for a while, just hung out. It's a really nice place to sit. Great view. The stream on the way up had garter snake. It had a salamander that we found in there, as well as some tadpoles of tailed frogs, one of our favorite amphibians that are native to this area. So we did see some cool animals on the way up too. And then just had a nice rest, and my blood sugar came back up. We thought that was going to be our biggest challenge. So once that was coming back up, going the right direction, we were like, let's just push on.
Well, I was nervous at that point, but I didn't really tell you how nervous I was. My fragile Nordic constitution doesn't do very well in the blazing sun and heat. And while we were sitting there waiting for Kevin's blood sugar to go up, the heat was also getting up. And
yes,
I was a little nervous, but one of the really important things when you're out hiking is to always be checking in with your body, even if you don't have a device connected to you to give you data. And so I thought, well, I think I can make it past the next waterfall.
Yes.
I'm not totally sure, but let's give it a try. We can always stop and turn back. And so
and
we went off into the woods, or
we did.
The ferns.
Yeah, the ferns, and we were doing okay. And there's no footage of this part because, well, first of all, it was a steep climb, but second of all, Julie's ahead of me going up the slope. And all of a sudden I hear her start making noises that I have never heard before. Like a sort of scream, yelp. I don't even know what to call it, but I knew something was very wrong. And
I don't get upset or scared in the woods. I don't make loud sounds
no.
unless something has gone terribly wrong, which it did.
And usually it's the same thing, which is Julie has found a wasp or a nest of wasps.
Or they have found me.
Or they have found her. And that's what happened in this case. So Julie starts yelping and starts getting very animated on this super steep slope. And I thought she was just going to run right off the slope and fall down into the canyon. So I'm ready to like play goalie and sort of just corral her onto the slope. But fortunately, she kept her balance and we just started coming back down quickly, made it down to the stream. And once we were down there, assessed the damage, and it's probably a lot more red now, but it was a good sting, good welt. Apparently a wasp, not a bee.
Unfortunately, it was only one really bad one. It wasn't multiple like I've had in the past.
Right,
so
and it didn't get stuck under your backpack strap like has happened in the past. So,
but it was definitely a sign that it was time for us to turn around.
Yeah.
Partially because we didn't want to go back into that area, and that was the only really safe, relatively safe way to disturb whatever nest was there. And partially because that adrenaline rush that kicks up also goes down. And in an emergency situation, it's really important to factor that in. So I wanted to make sure that I was being a responsible co-adventurer and getting myself to a place where I could easily and safely get myself out without you having to get out and get help for me.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, we headed back down, but fortunately the waterfall and a nice pool was waiting at the bottom. So we had a chance to douse that sting, douse ourselves, and to check in with each other, see how we're doing. Because we hadn't, we stopped at that upper waterfall, but I hadn't really checked in with you yet about how your surgery site was and everything else. So
yeah, so this was my 7th surgery in 7 years for breast cancer, and I was having complications with a surgical site on my abdomen for quite a few years. I had surgery about 7 months ago for that, and this was the first time I was really able to test it with putting on a heavy backpack, hiking up a hill in the heat, and fortunately it did really well.
Yeah, it did. So, yeah. So after the dip, it was time to head back, and we're on our way back now, as we mentioned. We didn't really know what to expect when we came out here today, especially since, as we said, it was our first major hike since a couple health milestones for both of us. But for the most part, I'd say it went pretty well.
I would agree. Yeah. And, the takeaway that we want to share with you is that sometimes things don't always look how you planned. And maybe you're struggling with health challenges like we are, and even a place like this seems impossibly remote. But time in nature is never wasted, and there's always something to be grateful for, whether it's sitting on the front porch of your apartment or being able to walk out in a local park. Nature is always there for you.
It's well worth seeking out.
Absolutely.
So I think we're going to head back to the car now and make sure that we still have 4 inflated tires. But remember, just like homesteading, there is no one right way to enjoy nature.
Only the way that's right for you.
Thanks so much for joining us.
We'll see you next time.